My boyfriend slept with another woman and claims I wanted him to. My hands are shaking. So sorry if there are stutters or mistakes. I don't know if I'll be able to explain what just happened. I'm in a hotel room right now, just falling apart. I live with my boyfriend, Jack. We've been together 2 years. The relationship has been good. We make love frequently, we say I love you often, and both of us participate in the other's family functions. I don't have any major complaints, and to my knowledge, he hasn't been unhappy. I am deeply in love with him. I came home today about an hour early. I had started to get a migraine at work, which isn't super unusual, and once I started to get nauseated, I decided I should just go home and lie down. It doesn't happen a ton, but maybe a few times a year where I decide to take the afternoon off. My boyfriend works nights, so is often home during the day. Pulled in the driveway and his car was there. Not unusual. He doesn't work until the evening. Parked on the street out front like I always do. You can't really hear the car from that distance unless you're really listening and when in the apartment. The bedroom is on the far side of the apartment from where I came in, so you usually can't hear a key in the lock or anything, especially with the air conditioning on. I said hello as I came in, but could immediately hear that the air conditioning on in the bedroom. I opened the door to say hello to Jack, and there he is, right in the middle of having it with a girl dog style. They both froze, and she looked really shocked. He was just sort of expressionless. She immediately sort of scrambled for the sheets, but he just sat there. I guess I was in shock because I actually walked in the bedroom where they were and got my suitcase from under the bed. I even said, "Excuse me," to the girl screwing my boyfriend. I went to my closet and threw a bunch of clothes in the case, and all the while he's constantly talking. I can't remember everything he said, but I distinctly heard him say, "I wanted to surprise you. We've wanted to spice things up in the bedroom." I didn't say anything and left and came to this hotel. We've discussed having a trio in the past, and I even said I would possibly be open to it at some point in the future. I told him I found the idea exciting, but that we would need to discuss things and find the right person if it was actually going to happen. I never wanted him to just surprise me out of the blue. He's been blowing up my phone ever since. He's left several voicemails and sent about a dozen texts. He said things didn't go like he imagined, but he thought it would be fun to have a spontaneous trio. He said he was trying to fulfill my needs. He kept blabbering on, saying that he just wanted to test the waters with the other person so that when the time came, they could both focus totally on me. The final straw was when he said that I was being totally unreasonable and ungrateful for the effort he was putting into our relationship. I stared at him for a minute, and then I just started laughing. I couldn't control it. I must have laughed hysterically for a full minute. I've been crying for the last 3 hours. I have no idea what to think at this point. I think he's lying to me, but what if he really thought he was doing what I wanted? Is it possible he's just that clueless? Update. My gut knew that I had to end the relationship, but I needed a kick in the pants to actually do it. The apartment we live in is actually owned by my uncle, with whom I am very close. I live there for free while attending grad school. It is part of a building he owns, and was his way of helping me afford to further my education. He had no problem with my boyfriend also living there, on the condition that he help out with managerial duties and repairs around the building. I called my uncle and told him the circumstances, and he called Jack and told him he needs to find a new place to live. He's not on a lease or anything, so hopefully it won't be a legal issue. I haven't responded to Jack in any way since yesterday. I returned to the apartment this afternoon. After going to the doctor to get tested, which is thankfully clear so far, Jack was there. Since he spoke with my uncle, he knew that I was breaking up with him and wanted him out. He immediately tried to argue with me, saying once again that the whole thing had been intended as a gift for me. I just ignored him as I went around the place packing his things. He also said that the only reason he started without me was that he wanted to get used to the two of them together, so things wouldn't be awkward when I arrived. Apparently, he thought having it with her first would make the trio go smoother. I didn't even look at him, just kept packing. I'm proud of myself that I didn't cry. I think I was past the point of crying. I asked for his key and then told him to leave. I said that he could call to arrange a time to come pick up all his things, but not to contact me for any other reason. His parents live in the same city, so I know he has somewhere to stay. He left looking pretty forlorn. I didn't ask how long he'd been cheating on me. Just knowing about the one incident was enough. He's obviously not the person I thought he was. I don't feel like I even know him anymore. I'm still sad, but I'm going to be okay. There's no way I could keep someone like that in my life. Today, I messed up by trying to save my dog from a kangaroo. Today, I 33 am, and my dog Rupert took our normal early morning walk route. We live in Australia, and so it is important for it to be early morning before the beaming sun comes out, and is too much for Rupert at his age. Australia this time of year in the morning is beautiful. I feel very at one with nature, as nobody is out and about at 6:30 in the morning, but you do get the odd bit of wildlife. Today was different, though. I took Roop to the park as always, and he ran straight over the hill for the lake as always. Normally I don't follow him, but today when I called out for him, he didn't come back. I called again. Still no reply. Then I heard a little cry from him. I knew something was wrong. I immediately ran over there and I saw a figure in the distance pinning Rupe down in the lake. To be frank, it looked like someone was giving it to Rupee from behind. I was scared as I started shouting, "Get away! Get away!" But then I realized it couldn't understand me as I looked up and saw a kangaroo had my Rupert. I pulled my phone out and started recording. I'm in black belt in jiu-jitsu. Ain't nobody treating my dog like that. Never mind a kangaroo. I got into the water, walked straight up to it, and belted it in the face. The next thing I know, I'm being pinned in the water by the kangaroo. He was strong, but I was stronger. I broke both me and Rupert free, and boy, I have never moved quicker. We got out of there, and after a quick vet's, stop all clear, no hard done to Roop. He's still a little shook up, but so am I. We are not going by that lake or any kangaroos anytime soon. I overheard my husband admit I'm ugly. To his friends, I am an unattractive woman, objectively. I've always been this way, and while I have accustomed myself to it, it nonetheless remains a daily fact that being an ugly woman sucks. I met my husband 4 years ago, and he is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. He has always and frequently told me I'm beautiful, and somehow sounded honest, without sounding like my mother, like someone without another option to answer. Last night, he had a group of friends over to our home. They meet several times a month to hang out, catch up, and play games. He has known most of these guys since high school. I was upstairs in the kitchen preparing drinks and snacks and I was able to hear them in the basement and began to eavesdrop, which I know was rude, but it wasn't really intentional. I realized they were talking about me. A couple of guys were teasing my husband about me, specifically about my looks. I could tell it was supposed to be funny. It was not. There was a point where one of them referred to me as a troll, and my husband blew up, started shouting, "Listen, shut the flip up. I know that my wife is ugly, but shut up. She makes me happy. Does your bimbo of the week do that, Jim? Dave, how long has it been since we've hung out and you haven't moaned about your wife? Not real names." He went on for a while, defending me, but all I could hear was, "I know she's ugly, I know she's ugly, I know she's ugly," again and again in my head. It just broke me, I don't know why. I've always known him unattractive, but he isn't supposed to. He tells me I'm beautiful. So sincerely and consistently, I'd started to actually believe he thought that. I started to cry and ran into a shower so no one could hear me. When I came out an hour later, everyone had gone home far earlier than normal. I went to bed and then haven't spoken to him all day today, but I think I've been able to avoid letting him know I'm upset or avoiding him. I know rationally that what he said was true and sweet, and that I sound be happy he loves me and not my body, but it doesn't seem to matter. I just want to be pretty. God, I feel so shallow. I've been crying all day. What do I say to him? Part of me wants to call him a liar, to scream and yell and cry, while the other part just wants to run away and never have to talk to him again and acknowledge that even the greatest man I will ever meet can't find me attractive. I confronted my husband over what I'd overheard. After we were both home from work, I told him I needed to talk. I told him I'd overheard him and his friends, and he immediately started to apologize for them saying they were jerks and smelly Ellies, and that I should have told him I'd heard. I had to stop him to let me get a word in and tell him it wasn't his friends so much as it was what he said. When I told him what he said, his whole tone changed. I could tell wasn't expecting to be blamed. I'd had the whole conversation planned out. I wanted to explain how it made me feel, how I thought he really was attracted to me, and how betrayed it made me feel to hear him that behind my back. But I just started to cry and couldn't really communicate what I wanted to say very well. He was awesome, though, and just held me. And then after a minute started to speak like he was reading out of the Bible, telling me he was just angry and didn't speak very well, that he really does find me attractive, even if the world doesn't and his friends don't. I calmed down pretty quick. I'd basically cried myself out the day before. He took me to his computer and showed me an email he sent to all of his friends on Sunday. I wish I could copy-paste it now, but he basically called all his friends smelly Ellies, said they'd crossed the line from good-natured trash talk to just being bad people, and then continued going far beyond. He said that for time indefinite, they'd have to find another host. We're no longer welcome in my home. He actually said, my lover's home. I thought that would make it sound like I was ordering him around being a cow, but he said he just wanted to empathize how wrong what they were doing was. Seeing him stand up for me again made me happy, especially seeing me do it without talking bad about me, helping me believe it really was just heat-of-the-moment bad word choice. He told me to wait in the room and left, coming back with a folder. He said he was going to give me this for Christmas, but that he'd get me something else. I tried to say no, but he insisted. It was plane tickets and brochures. He set up a trip in early January to this spa hotel resort thing in British Columbia. But I realized that it had to be several $1,000s he'd spent. We budget pretty thoroughly. He shouldn't have been able to spend that without me noticing. I asked where he got the money, and he said he'd been planning this for more than a year and saving all the money assigned to his weekly spending money and collecting where I wouldn't notice, change from groceries, etc. When I say that sometimes I'm not sure I deserve him, understand that I'm not having a crisis I need help dealing with. He's just really awesome. He's taking me out for dinner, so I have to go, but I'll be on again tonight. I started a nasty rumor about someone back in high school that turned out to be true. This happened in high school, so I was about 15 or 16 years old, and it was a small high school in a tiny southern, mostly conservative town. Surprisingly, mine was one of those schools that pretended to care about discrimination, but it was all very half-assed. I'm a transgender male, and back then I couldn't be out to too many people, so I mostly presented as a girl and was only out to a very small group of people who I considered to be my close friends. There was this one girl who I thought I could trust with my identity, so I told her, but she went and deliberately misgendered me behind my back, not to people I wasn't out to, but to my close friends who knew of and could discuss my identity. Mind you, if someone slips up and uses she for me, I don't care. I correct them real quick, or they will correct themselves and I will thank them for it. But this girl did it deliberately, going as far as rolling her eyes when I quietly and politely corrected her. My dead name is not easy to pronounce for English speakers, and my chosen name at the time was more American, but she still went out of her way to learn how to pronounce my old name so she could call me it. I was going to tolerate it because between my grades and home life, I wasn't in the mood to deal with her. But one day, I was sitting with a friend, and she told me about this girl's behavior. I told her I just wanted to brush it off, and my friend asked if I was really about to let her do that to me. For some reason, that made something click, and at the time, I thought I wasn't respecting myself by doing nothing about it. I decided to start a rumor that the girl was hooking up with her cousin. I tried to be subtle about it. When someone mentioned her, I would ask, is it the one that's dating her cousin or another one? If I was asked about it, I'd say, I think it's kind of gross, so I try not to think about it. People in that school loved drama. It doesn't matter if it sounds true. If it's juicy enough, it's good enough to spread. So, of course, the news spread like wildfire. It was scary to watch because I thought I'd ruined someone's life over a small conflict with something that wasn't actually true. Eventually, the rumor reached her, and she was livid. No one knew who started it, and I had always claimed that someone else had told me it. I thought she had been denying it when I heard that she knew about the rumor, until I overheard some classmates talking about it. I'm very quiet and keep to myself, so I think people assume that means I'm not listening or won't tell when they gossip around me. That means they would talk loudly, and I would be able to eavesdrop on the conversation. Apparently, she wasn't denying it. She was defending herself. She was threatening to fight people, asking if it was really that wrong since they weren't planning on having kids, and saying, so love is love until it's us, referring to herself and one of her cousins. It was wild, and it made me feel sick, both because it was a rumor I started that got people into this mess and because it turned out to be true. Eventually, things seemed to settle down when administration made a vague statement about minding our business when it comes to people's personal lives. It hasn't been that long, but I have graduated, and I'm a sophomore in college now, and I still lie awake of night thinking about it. I practically ruined someone's reputation and got off scot-free, but at the same time, this person was in an incestuous relationship with her cousin. Years later, and it's still as conflicting to me as it was back then. She was not a good person, and I think she deserved it to some extent. But it makes my stomach churn with guilt still for some reason. Am I the asshole for telling my brother I met his new girlfriend at an AA meeting? My brother started dating this new girl, and I realized I recognized her from AA. I'm not an addict, but my lawyer recommended I attend some AA meetings to help strengthen an ongoing case against me. I know it's her because I remember her very unique name from the AA meeting, and she also talked for a very long time. I thought it was important to mention it to my brother is because I'm worried about her as a partner to him. In AA, she mentioned that not only did she use hard stuff, but also that she feels like she can't control herself. She also admitted to the goods making her verbally and unstable emotionally, and at the time she was not sober. I know my brother, and I know that he holds himself and his partners to a high standard and that he hates drama in his relationship. I told my brother what she said, and he broke up with her, and she basically stalked me and also called me an untrustworthy cow who ruined her experience with AA. Honestly, I think I was just trying to help my brother out, but some of my friends think it was messed up for me to tell him. But I think it's better for him to know what kind of person she is ahead of time. Am I the bad guy? To clear some things up because people are assuming a lot. I am fighting my case because I believe the legal system is corrupt, but I want to be accountable in other ways. I don't regularly drink and drive. I don't even drink at all. The night was the worst night of my life, and I would take it back in a heartbeat. All I'm asking is opinions on how I should have handled the situation with this girl, not to talk about whether I deserve to rot in jail because of my DUI. I do not condone drinking and driving and think it a very serious thing, and I understand the gravity of my actions. Update. I showed my brother the thread. We talked about it. He told me he thinks I have a drinking problem. That was hard to hear. He also reached to his ex. I don't know the results of that. I reread my replies. The stories about drunk drivers hurting loved ones hit me the hardest. I felt a lot of guilt realizing what I did and went into a spiral. I think everything I bottled up came out and I quit my job. I emailed the AA group leader with a lengthy apology. She was upset, of course, but was very kind. I'm banned from AA, but she matched me with someone to talk to. I texted my brother's ex with an apology and an offer to meet up in person. She didn't reply for a few days. Eventually she did, and said that she acknowledges, but she also went in on me and went into detail about how much pain I caused her. But even after hooking up, she said she cannot forgive me yet. I talked to my lawyer. We're trying to figure out the logistics of a guilty plea without time because he thinks that what I did in AA may affect my case. I'll likely get my license revoked and have to pay a fine. I'm currently jobless, and I'm probably going to move back in with my parents until I can be better. There's also a tweet going around saying someone knows me and outed me to my brother. But this did not happen. This person was trying to capitalize on a messed up situation for internet points. My brother and I have never met nor interacted with this person. At the moment, I am still very sad. I'm trying to right my wrongs, but I don't think I can ever do that. However, I think that this was going to come eventually. And the thread didn't make me sad. It was the consequences of my own actions. Thank you for helping me see the pain I was causing before it was too late. I think my girlfriend might be trying to secretly get pregnant. I greatly care for this girl and can imagine myself having a future with her. I really enjoy being with her. We've been together for a little over a year, and I'm certain that she feels the same way. I should also note that we have, up until recently, never really had any major issues, fights in our relationship. For these reasons, we have been talking a lot lately about the future marriage, kids, etc., and where we see ourselves over the next few years. However, while she feels we are ready to settle down, I want to wait a little longer so that we can enjoy our youth for a few more years. This has caused some disagreement between us and did cause her to express concern over having to wait too long, but I thought that this was nothing major and told her to wait just a few more years. She's not one to take no for an answer, so I think she may be trying to get pregnant, as her behavior has been strange over the last 2 months. Over the course of our relationship, we both have agreed that I would either use protect or pull out, since she sometimes fails to remember to take her control, but she recently told me that I could start finishing the business inside because she was going to do better about remembering to take her protection. This caught me by surprise, and I told her that I was okay with continuing on the way things were, which seemed to upset her a bit. She didn't really get mad, but she seemed really insistent on me finishing the business inside and promised me that it would feel a lot better. At this point, I had no reason to not believe her sincerity, so I did it a few times, but then told her that I just wasn't entirely comfortable because I knew she had been forgetful in the past. This comment, for whatever reason, seemed to hurt her, so I suggested that maybe she look into an IUD as a possible solution to our dilemma. She responded by saying that she would rather stay on the tablets and that I needed to just relax and enjoy the feeling. One more thing I should note is that I have noticed she almost will no longer stimulate me to finish the business unless it's inside, which she claims is because she doesn't want to tire me out and wants my best. However, this has never been an issue before and is another recent development which doesn't make sense. At first, I thought this behavior was a little strange, but no big deal, right? However, I finally started to get a little suspicious when she started actively questioning what I would do if she got pregnant, and by actively questioning, bringing it up constantly. I told her that we would discuss that if it happened, and that we should consider all options in such a situation. This caused a fight between us where she ended up crying and saying that I didn't care about her, and that I was being selfish by refusing to discuss our future, i.e. specifically state what I would do if she got pregnant. But we again talked things over and I apologized, although I'm still not sure what I did wrong. Things seemed to get better from there, but I did notice that she was, and still is, talking a lot about babies and children, especially considering that we had discussed children only a handful of times before the last 2 months. Specifically, though, she has been talking them up, if you will. That is, she has been talking about how fun it would be to have a baby and how cute they are, and she also started saying repeatedly that I would make a great dad. My only response to this has been to remind her that I would love to have children, but just not right now. To which she has consistently responded by saying something like, sometimes fate has a different plan for us, and that we have to be flexible. However, what finally led me to believe that she was purposefully trying to get pregnant was when she started offering to buy my protection. This was really unusual, as I've always bought them myself throughout our relationship, and before that. When I asked her why the sudden urge to do this, she said that it was because it was convenient and something that all girlfriends do. I tried to press the issue further, but she ended the conversation by saying that she just wanted to take care of me. As of now, she hasn't bought any for me, and I have no proof that she could be poking holes in them, but I feel really uneasy. I don't want to hurt her by refusing to have the business with her, but I also don't want to have a baby now. This isn't helped by the fact that she still wants me to finish inside when we have the business. In fact, it has gotten to the point where I feel bad if I don't comply, even though I feel I shouldn't give in to her because I want so badly to trust her. I think I really would be devastated if I found out that she has been trying to trick me into getting her pregnant. I confronted my girlfriend last night about some of her recent behavior with wanting me to finish the business inside her, offering to buy protection for me, and talking excessively about babies. I also spoke about my concerns that she was trying to get secretly pregnant behind my back. The conversation did not go very well, to say the least. I started off by telling her that I felt like we had been having problems communicating lately, and maybe this had led us to have a misunderstanding about where we felt we were going. I then told her that I felt like maybe in our conversations about our future together, I had made her think that my unwillingness to settle down was a sign I was still looking around or didn't want to commit to her, when it really was just my belief that we should use this time to grow closer and work on our relationship. However, I let her know that I wanted to marry her and have a family with her, but that I just didn't feel ready for those things yet. I didn't want to be hostile, so I first tried to reassure her of my commitment to her before I confronted her about trying to possibly get pregnant in secret. This is the point where our conversation started to go badly. I then questioned her about why she had been so concerned lately with babies. Was it because several people we know have just recently gotten pregnant or had babies? Or was there something else that had caused this development? She became defensive at first, saying that all girls think about babies a lot. But I eventually got her to admit that these pregnancies had made her think more about having a child and realize how badly she wanted one now. I told her that I understood how powerful this urge was, but that I felt very strongly neither of us are ready to have a child and that we should wait, which was where things really got bad. She said something like, "We love each other, so would it be so terrible if we have a baby now since we plan to someday?" I told her that the timing wasn't right and that I was becoming increasingly concerned that maybe she wasn't trying as hard not to get pregnant and brought up some of the reasons why. I said that I had talked about this with some other people and that they too thought it seemed like she might almost be trying to get pregnant. Here she started crying and said that I was being selfish because I wouldn't even consider having a baby now. She then said that she loved me and wanted my baby and felt like I was scared and had no legitimate reasons for waiting. So she admitted to taking matters into her own hands in order to give me the push I needed to marry her and start a family. This is the point in the conversation where she told me that I may not have a choice in waiting to have a baby and then said she was pregnant. She told me she was around 6 weeks, but I was so angry and hurt and shocked that I don't remember. I asked her if she knew for sure, and she said that she has been to her OB or GYN to confirm it and didn't tell me because she wanted to see how I would react to the idea. I think at this point we both were in tears. I accused her of manipulating me and deceiving me, and she told me that this baby was the best thing for us. She then went and got the ultrasound photo or something and tried to show it to me, but I told her I need to think, which led her to hug me and say that what's done is done and that there was no point in me trying to fight it as she was not going to get rid of it. I left after that and haven't talked to her since. I don't know if there is anything I can do at this point, but if she has the baby, I will be the best dad I can be. As for our relationship, I can't imagine that I could ever be with her again given that she broke my trust. I suppose the moral of the story is to always wear protection and never take for granted that a girl is using her meds no matter how much you trust her. How can I get rid of my crazy flatmate? This girl has been terrorizing the whole flat and we need her go. But do we have a leg to stand on legally? If not, what can we do? In short, she has been verbally mean to all of us, had terrifying extreme screaming, crying, banging her fists episodes over nothing, tried and succeeded to manipulate us into turning against each other by flat-out lying and making up things we've said, as well as constantly and deliberately created arguments. She's not like anything I've seen before. We've had huge arguments with her before and tried to talk it out, but ultimately given up and just been civil because she is actually incapable of empathizing to a sociopathic degree and refused to apologize for anything, seeing herself as the victim. However, after yet another fight with her a few weeks ago, all three of us have stopped talking to her unless absolutely necessary. She now resentfully crashes round the house and she comes in from work slamming all the doors at 2 a.m. when we are all studying for our finals, as she's 4 years older than us. But she's in a lower year and does not have any exams or essays and generally forces her presence on us, even though when she comes in there is total silence. The tension in the house is absolutely unbearable. Our lease runs until the end of June, but we had all agreed several months ago before we realized she's batted insane to renew the lease and stay another year. We'll suffer her till the end of June, but we can't have her renew the lease and stay. We know she wants to stay, mainly out of stubbornness, but also because the flat is gorgeous, and it's harder to find a place to rent than it is to find flatmates to fill the rooms. Legally, I don't know what we can do, as she hasn't physically attacked any of us or done anything illegal except smoke, which the rest of us have also done, although don't at the moment. We haven't yet talked to our landlord. I don't think he'll want to get involved, and he'll say it's us who have to decide. However, if he did, I might have a slight advantage in that I've been renting my room for 3 years now, unlike her who moved in September, and I get on well with the landlord. He always deals with me when something in the flat needs doing. By the way, we live in the UK, and also doing petty things like breaking her stuff would only make her more determined, and anyway, we wouldn't want to do that. Update, I just contacted my landlord and detailed all the crazy that had gone down. To my complete surprise, he instantly agreed that she sounded like a complete nightmare, and he said that he was happy not to renew her lease. So after a lot of excitement and psyching ourselves up, myself and my other flatmate went into her lair to have a talk. We tell her she should leave. She says she's staying. We say actually no, she isn't, because the landlord won't be renewing her lease. We tried to discuss it calmly, but it turns into an argument, because we had forgotten that her arguing style is to pick out one tiny piece of irrelevant shit and then beat it to death. We then stop it and just get out of there. We tried to tell her to cut the stomping around and messing stuff up, or we'd have her kicked out, but at the end that part wasn't really emphasized enough. We waited for her to contact the landlord to make out that she was the victim, but if she did, nothing came of it. Myself and the others feel more relaxed in the flat now because although she's still going about like thunder, the knowledge that she's going makes it easier to bear. We've already found a nice guy to take her place. Only 43 days left. 43 days later, update. So, a lot of people feared both for our safety and for our material possessions. The general advice was to install locks on our bedroom's doors. We did ask the landlord to do this, but he never got round to it before we left. 2 of us were going to be away for 2 weeks. And yes, we could have done it ourselves, but we didn't. Sorry for not taking your advice that you left in the comments. However, nothing of ours was stolen or damaged by her while we were away, although my flatmate thinks she may have stolen her SD card. Another concern raised was that she might refuse to leave. However, she did indeed leave. The last few days were tense. She kept on screaming at the top of her voice on Skype, arguing with some other poor unfortunate. She took some flat stuff, ridiculous things like the bathroom air freshener. But then she took the clothes horse, which degenerated into a brief screaming argument. Petty on all sides, yes, but we were all at breaking point at this stage. She also took her house keys and won't return them, will cut new keys and have requested that the landlord take the charge off her deposit. It does make me a little anxious that she has keys, though, and I want us all to put the snib on the door at night. Another thing that makes me anxious is that a bill arrived that she needs to pay. But if she still doesn't answer calls and texts, we can take it off her deposit. So our new flatmate, her replacement, is moving in today. He is a cool guy. Hi, Rob. Turns out he's also a Redditor. Apparently, he actually commented on the original post, but won't tell me which his comment is, presumably so I don't see his posts. He has a whole load of musical instruments and an Xbox and drinks shoe leather tea, although he has just suggested a flat excursion to see the new Katy Perry movie. My boyfriend's best friend is obsessed with him, and he won't do anything about it, and it's ruining our relationship. My 21F boyfriend, Darren, 25 AM, dating for 1 year, has a best friend, Russell 23M, who displays extreme obsessive behavior towards him. He calls Darren multiple times a day, gets angry when can't hang out with him, and throws tantrums when he doesn't get his way. There was one time I invited Darren to get snowed in at my house, and Russell called me crying, saying that he wanted Darren to get snowed in with him, and when I didn't uninvite Darren, he had a complete meltdown and called me selfish, controlling, and a terrible girlfriend. Among other things I won't repeat. I blocked him, but he called my friends and cried to them, asking them to convince me to uninvite him because I'm so selfish. This is only one example of his insanity. Things got better earlier in the year when Russell got a girlfriend, 22F, and rerouted his attention to her. We didn't see him for months because he was so busy spending time with her. We threw a birthday party for Darren, and Russell came without his girlfriend, so naturally he was out of control. And after that night, he started bothering us every weekend to party and hang out. My Darren has a full-time and part-time job, while Russell has been unemployed for months, so Darren doesn't want to get drunk every weekend, which makes Russell mad. Darren and I see each other most evenings and all day Saturday, which Russell knows because they're next-door neighbors. Even when he knows I'm at Darren's house, he'll call and try to get Darren to ditch me and hang out with him. And when Darren says no, he just takes up our time by talking about stupid and vulgar things and gets upset when Darren ends the call. The most baffling thing is that he doesn't take no for an answer. He'll wait an hour to call back and see if Darren changed his mind and wants to hang out this time. It's a never-ending cycle. There was an incident a few weeks ago where Darren caught Russell cheating on his girlfriend with a mutual friend, 22M, so he came out as bi, which we have no problem with. My biggest issue is that his girlfriend has no idea he's bi and still doesn't know he cheated, but he brings his girlfriend around less because of this, which only causes him to cling to Darren even more. I posted in another sub and people commented saying that Russell is in love with Darren and something needs to be done. I had a talk with Darren about making boundaries and he agreed to talk to Russell about getting things under control, not answering calls from Russell when I'm with him and making sure we don't hang out with Russell one-on-one. I thought things were finally getting better. But over the weekend, Russell called out of work. He got this job 3 weeks ago because he wanted to hang out with Darren without asking first. Darren felt bad, so he agreed, which I think is only enabling him more. I don't know what more I can do. I start panicking when I hear Darren's phone ring. We have to sneak into the house because Russell watches to see when we get home. And even when we temporarily block him, he knocks on the door. I've thought about reaching out to his girlfriend and explaining everything to see if she can get through to him, but I know she'll be devastated, and it might cause more problems. A restraining order isn't necessary yet, because things aren't to that level, and Darren is too afraid to stand up to him because of his tantrums and potential violence. What can I do to make sure this doesn't ruin our relationship? So last weekend was when Russell had a psychotic break. This week has been calmer since Darren had a talk with him about how his behavior is pushing him away. His biggest tantrum this week was because Darren and I found a condo 30 minutes away that we liked and wanted to check it out. We were supposed to go Friday, so when Russell asked to hang out that night, we had to tell him why we were busy. No surprise, he flipped out and asked why we were looking now when we said we weren't moving out till next year. He's been badgering Darren with questions every day about it and freaking out because he'll see Darren less. Then, after Darren had the talk about how his constant calling bothers him, he claimed his reason for calling and texting so much last week during his breakdown was because he had something so important to ask us. What was that important question, you ask? Do you want to go kayaking with me and my girlfriend next month? I was furious. Darren has to explain again that we won't be doing activities with him and his girlfriend anymore since he cheated on her with their other friend, and she still doesn't know, and I feel too guilty to be around her knowing. He was mad but knew he was the one in the wrong, so he left it at that. The biggest development this week is that he got kicked out of his house. That's right next door to Darren's house because his mom said if he isn't going to show up for work, he isn't welcome to stay there. He acted so surprised and upset when he literally calls out every single weekend for no reason except to see Darren's. I'm worried he'll guilt Darren into moving in with him by saying he has nowhere else to go. I told Darren if he moves in, there's no way our relationship will survive. I also think this will be a way to manipulate Darren to give him more attention. Like he says he's busy, but Russell pulls the "I'm just so sad and need a friend" card when he actually doesn't care since he'll end up living with his GF. Luckily, Darren told me he feels he's starting to grow out of Russell and wouldn't mind seeing him significantly less. Also, he talked to his mom after she took Russell's side, saying he's just desperate for friends and we should feel sorry for him. After the talk and finding out about all the harassment and hatred towards me and infatuation to Darren, she sees why we avoid him and has stopped blaming me. I guess we'll see how he acts this week while he figures out where he'll be staying and if he can manipulate Darren into spending more time with him. My boyfriend just told me today he doesn't like the idea of gift giving and I shouldn't expect any for Christmas. But I've already spent $1,000 on him. I, 21F, have been dating Rob, 23M, since February, and I thought things were going really well until today. I know it's already ridiculously late to speak about presents, and I wish we'd discussed this earlier. I just assumed even if we hadn't spoken about giving presents, we would still be exchanging some. Well, today, I brought up that I couldn't wait for Christmas, and I was wondering what my parents were going to get me, and he started going off about he is so against presents and the idea of gifts. I was taken aback and asked, "So you're not giving me anything?" And he said, "Nah." He told me he's never bought anything for anyone, so I shouldn't expect to be different. We spoke for a long while about why and such, but it's not important, as in the end, he still isn't going to give me anything. I feel as if things have changed since this conversation, in only a few hours. I feel as if I'm obviously not too important to him, if he hasn't gone out of his way to get me even a tiny gift. I made it clear I do like giving and receiving presents, and I told him I'd already bought his, so he said he'd take his then. Is it wrong of me to not want to give him his present if I won't be receiving one? I think it's a little selfish he's going to accept his present without giving me anything. I don't want to break up, but I'm wondering how important this relationship is to him. This may sound melodramatic, but I've never been with someone with such odd views on Christmas. What do you guys think? Should I take his present back? Should I give it to him and ask if he'll make an exception and buy me at least a little something, or should I keep the presents for myself? We spoke, and lots of stuff has happened since, and it's been pretty hectic. I decided to keep the gift I got him. It was a PS5 Spider-Man edition with loads of games, and because I like gaming and Spider-Man, plus I didn't have those games, I figured I'd keep it for myself. I knew taking them back would be pointless because I'd end up buying something similar anyway. So I opened them as I was feeling way too stressed about this and played them happily. It did cheer me up a bit, and so did calling a few friends. So I decided to speak to him. I went over to his house, and I asked him if this meant I'd not be getting presents for my birthday or Valentine's either, and he said those holidays were different. Apparently, the only holiday he was against giving gifts on is Christmas. This confused me even more, as if he's against present giving. Shouldn't it be for all holidays and not just one? I asked him if it had to do with religious reasons, and he said no. He just disliked the idea of Christmas, and that was it. He had been brought up thinking it wasn't normal to give presents on Christmas. Then I brought up another point that was mentioned a few times in the comments. How come I wasn't an exception? I should be just a little bit important to him, I hope, and therefore he could have bought me something anyway just because I'm his girlfriend, and it would have been nice to receive something. He told me he'd never make an exception for anyone because those were his beliefs, and anyone who dated him would need to understand and respect that. We argued for a long time, like I'm thinking we spent at least 4 hours just sitting in his room discussing why he was so against giving me anything. Also, why was he so all right with buying me something for my birthday and Valentine's, but not Christmas? I would understand if it was for religious reasons, but he clearly stated it had nothing to do with that. He blamed it on his parents, which makes the next part even more interesting. His mother comes into the room asking us to come into the living room. I knew they were leaving on the 24th for a small vacation, so I was wondering if this was a small goodbye, or maybe even perhaps to scold us for yelling at each other. The house is big, but I don't doubt they could have heard a little bit. And then I was speechless. Sitting on the fucking dining table are his parents and 6 wrapped-up gifts. I look at him like, really? You don't celebrate giving presents on Christmas because your parents are against it, but they do? The parents sat us down and gave each of us a gift and told us to open it now, and we'd have our own small Christmas just a day before. I opened it, was a lovely gift, thanked them, etc., all while slating my boyfriend mentally. I was a little annoyed. And then this happens. He starts grinning while I'm glaring and takes out a gift. For me, I want to cry at this point. What the moo is actually going on? He hands me the gift, and it's a Swarovski necklace, looking pretty expensive. He smiles. The parents leave to give us some space, and I smile back, still really flipping confused. He said it was hard to try and hide this gift while I was yelling at him earlier, but all along, he had made an exception for me. All of it was a surprise. He doesn't believe in present giving, but still had bought me one anyway just because he thought I deserved it. So at this point, he still doesn't believe in giving anyone presents, but he did buy me one. I was immediately really happy and hugged him. It's a lovely necklace, and I apologized over and over again for yelling. We have a really nice time, and head back to the bedroom and watch TV, cuddling and having a sweet time, but then he asks for his present. I tell him I've opened them already and kept them for myself, so I'm going to need time to buy him a new one. He suddenly becomes furious. I explained he told me he wasn't going to get me something, so obviously I wasn't going to be giving him one if I wasn't supposed to expect anything back. He gets really mad, saying I should have kept the present for him, because in the end, he did get me something. But how was I supposed to know that? He begins to scream about how I'm an ungrateful cow and how he shouldn't have spent a penny on me. His mother comes in, tells him to calm down, and he screams at me to leave the house, and he never wants to see me again. I do, and take the necklace, perhaps a bad move. I explained I will buy him a new gift, a better one, and still he's too angry at me to understand he only needs to wait a day. I left and came home, really flipping, confused. I tried calling, and he hasn't answered. I've been calling since I left the house 3 hours ago. Guys, I don't know what to do. I'm so confused, and today has been one hell of a day. Any advice and appreciated? I'm thinking of going back there tomorrow. I'm sorry if this wasn't written the best way. My head is all over the place. I think we're going to break up. I've also spoken to my best friends, and they're also confused as hell. Thanks in advance. How do I tell a couple that they are both cheating on each other with me? I, 28F, have been seeing 2 people recently. I've been seeing Kara, 30F, for a little over 5 months, and Mark, 29M, for almost 6 months. Both relationships are currently in a state of non-commitment, even though I've expressed feelings in both relationships and they've been reciprocated. But I'm naturally not a super commitment-focused person, and both of the people I'm seeing have respected that a lot, so yeah. Anyways, both relationships have been great, and I'm incredibly happy with them. And since neither are committed to me, I've kind of just assumed that both Kara and Mark were likely seeing other people as well, even if we haven't talked about it. Well, about a week ago, Kara came over to my place to spend the night, which she does like once a week or every other week. She goes to take a shower, and I start gathering laundry and grab her stuff to throw in with mine and take her phone out of her jeans. I glance at the screen and see a few texts from a contact called My Love. I was kind of surprised by this because while not talking to me about casual relationships is not something I would care about, the contact name made me think she had a more serious relationship going on, which I don't mind but would like to be informed about. So, okay, I did an admittedly bad thing and read the text, and then read a few more. And it became apparent that this was a really committed relationship. Like, I love yous, I'll be back home soon, please remember to grab so-and-so from the grocery store, stuff like that. The contact picture looked kind of familiar too, so I clicked on it to see better, and it ended up being a picture of Mark. I kind of flipped at this because this is kind of a ridiculous situation, and I left my apartment for some air. I came back like 30 minutes later, and Kara was waiting for me and confused where I'd been. I apologized to her for looking at her phone, but told her that I saw the texts from her partner and that I was feeling kind of hurt, that she hadn't told me that she had a more serious relationship going on, since she knows I value transparency. I specifically did not mention that I was also dating Mark or knew who he was because I felt I needed to scope out the situation more. She ended up breaking down in tears and spilled everything. Told me that Mark is her husband, that he doesn't know she's been seeing me, that she's felt so conflicted and guilty because she loves him but has really grown to love me too, that she feels wrong and dirty for keeping everything secret. I'm upset that I've been made into a mistress without knowing, but I try to talk to her about everything. We end up staying up super late talking and crying and pouring our hearts out. I still don't mention that I'm dating Mark too because I feel like I need to talk to him about this before any big decisions are made on my part. I ended up inviting Mark to stay at my place a few nights later, and I confront him about the fact that I know he has a wife as I made up something about my friends seeing them out together and ask why he's kept this from me. His reaction was really similar. Guilt, not understanding why he's attracted to 2 people at once, saying he very deeply loves Kara and doesn't want to leave her, but really loves me too. Says he's confused and doesn't know what to do. I don't mention to him that I know Kara or that I'm dating her. I asked him if he's heard of polyamory before, and he said yes, but he doesn't know anything about it, really. I ended up encouraging him to maybe talk to his wife to see if that's something she'd be interested in, but he was terrified that she'd be hurt by the suggestion. I really do love both of them and don't want to leave them. I've been poly for a long time and am very familiar with navigating ethical non-monogamy, and to me this feels a lot like 2 poly people struggling to come to terms with and accept a facet of their fantasies, and they're just navigating that confusion and self-discovery in ways that are not great. But I want to give them grace for their mistakes, I guess. So this is the part where I think I might be the worst person in the world if I go through with it. I've talked with both Kara and Mark separately about talking to their spouse, about what's been going on, and about polyamory in general. And they're both terrified and really don't want to. So I was thinking of inviting them both to my place at the same time to hash it out without telling them that the other person will be there, since they still don't know I'm dating both of them. I think once they realize they've been dating the same person, things might be easier to navigate, and will force them to confront what's been going on. But also, IDK if springing this on them is the best thing I could do, but I really have no idea how to navigate this differently. To be frank, if they love each other and both love me, my ideal outcome is that we continue things as they have been, but with no secrecy and 100% transparency. I'm also afraid that even though they've both been seeing the same person and have expressed interest in polyamory after talking about it with me, they might feel personally betrayed by each other, and everything could backfire spectacularly, and I could possibly explode their whole marriage. I've invited them both round in a few days' time. Update: I ended up meeting with my therapist the day after I submitted the ask to talk about normal therapy stuff, but also to get her take on this situation I'd found myself in. She said that involving myself in this situation more than I needed to was a bad idea, that I shouldn't try to talk things out and should likely just cut contact with both of them and not divulge info about the fact I'd been dating both of them. This kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, because I guess I felt like I would owe it to both of them to at least explain why I'm dipping from our relationships. Because even though there's not commitment necessarily, lots of feelings have been shared and reciprocated, and it wouldn't feel right to just walk away with no explanation. I also wasn't really wanting to break up with either of them, despite the fact that I'd started to grow kind of upset about being made into a mistress without knowing. I'm still giving them both grace for their mistakes, but can't deny that I've been feeling really hurt by the whole situation. I also ended up talking to a friend of mine who suggested that hosting a talk with both of them at my place would be a bad idea, since if things went bad between them, I wouldn't be able to just leave, and I agreed after thinking about it. I really wasn't sure how to approach this because no option felt good or right, so I ended up taking a kind of clumsy route. The day after therapy, I invited Kara over to my place to talk because she tends to be the more level-headed and less emotional of the two of them, and I thought it would be easier to explain to her first. I admitted to her that I knew Mark, and that I'd actually been seeing him for a little longer than I'd been seeing her. I told her I hadn't known they were married, or that they even knew each other until the day I confronted her about having a partner. She was pretty taken aback and upset that I hadn't said anything before, and I apologized and told her that I didn't know how to approach the situation without potentially ruining things for them, and that's why I waited to gather info and decide what to do. We talked for a long time about everything. I apologized for not telling her sooner. She apologized for involving me in a huge mess without my knowledge. Lots of apologies all around and emotional talk. She said she felt kind of betrayed by Mark, but also felt that she didn't have the right to feel that way, considering everything. I then told her that I hadn't talked to Mark about this yet, and that I would leave the news up to her discretion, since they're at a level of commitment I simply don't have with either of them. I offered to tell him myself, or to be there with her, or to keep myself out of it if that's what she preferred. She decided that she wanted to talk to Mark by herself and would let me know how things went, and I agreed with this. She told me I love you, gave me a kiss, and off she went. That night, at like 4 in the morning, I get text from Mark. He says he and Kara have been up all night talking about the situation, and that he's upset with me for not divulging the fact that I'd been dating both of them sooner, but that he understands why I was hesitant and doesn't blame me. He gives a long-winded apology for involving me in the whole situation, then says that he needs time to think about everything with Kara, and that they want to work on their communication and their marriage, so he'd be taking space from our relationship for the time being. I text him back once I've woken up and apologize too and tell him I understand. Kara texts me a similar thing about needing time and space. I tell her the same thing. I'm not completely stupid. I knew this was going to be a really likely possibility, but it still hurts in a lot of ways. I feel kind of betrayed by both of them for making me the other woman without my knowledge. And I'm also heartbroken because I do genuinely love both of them, despite the fact that I'm a little angry with them in this moment. Maybe I'm jumping the gun by thinking taking time means a breakup, but I can't help but feel like that's what it is. Maybe I'm just catastrophizing because of anxiety, but I really don't know how else to feel TBH, or how to talk myself off this ledge. I also feel incredibly selfish for wanting something from them still while they're trying to figure out how they're going to move forward in their relationship, especially because obviously their marriage takes priority over woman I've loved for half a year. It's been almost a week, and I haven't heard from either of them yet, so I've kinda just been wallowing in my misery and expecting the worst. I don't feel like it's appropriate for me to reach out, and also feel it would be unfair of me to do so since they both asked for time, so I'm kinda just in waiting mode until I hear from them. They're both genuinely really great people, despite how the situation has turned out, and I really hope things work out for them, and they can work through this together. But man, I can't help but wish that I could be there too. My boyfriend is upset because I ignore him whenever he talks about his late wife. I am dating who lost his wife a few years ago. Usually we are good to each other, except for the fact he constantly brings his late wife into our conversations needlessly. I don't have a good feeling about this. Click the share button and send it to the first person who appears comment update when done for a follow back. I know that her death was hard for him, and I'm here as a consequence of her dying, but it's not fair to be reminded that I am only here by chance and not by choice. I tried explaining this to him, but he would legit find ways to pepper stories about her in our conversations and connect it back to things about her. I dislike this very much. Couples therapy is cost prohibitive, so I've tried being open and stating my boundaries. They have been disrespected so many times that I have almost grown allergic to her name. I know I sound like a cow, but emotions get the best of me at times. I went to a private forum discussing my woes and I took their advice. Lately, I have started ignoring what my boyfriend says whenever he brings her up. I disengage from that conversation and change the subject, hoping he will notice. I would find a way to leave the room covertly. Oh, I need to get some water, I'm thirsty. And that would put a temporary end to the conversations. Or I'll say I am tired, or I'll look at my phone. He has noticed a pattern here and thought he could do better by telling me even more stories to get me to know her through him. Lately, he has been calling me an a-hole for disregarding her. I told him I didn't know her, I don't need to, and I don't care about her. If he wants to talk about her, he can do so with someone who knew her, but it's inappropriate if he does that with me. I simply disagreed with him and told him, I've tried being patient with you, but if you're not ready to leave her behind to focus on us, I cannot support you. I don't want to stay with someone whose central focus is someone else. I'm going to confront him and give him a choice, stop speaking about his past wife, or I'll divorce him. Being bald is so much worse than people make it out to be. I started losing my hair at 21 years old. I was devastated. I was told by my family that nobody cares and women love bald men. 4 years later, and I have a completely shaved head and 25, and I can confirm that everything I was told was just a flat-out lie. Beautiful women are in fact not attracted to bald men. People also do care if you're bald. The amount of comments I get on my head is sickening and always degrading in some way. I went from an objective 7 out of 10 with hair to a 4 out of 10 without. This literally ruined my life. I've been shaving now, full chrome dome, for almost 2 years, and I genuinely don't think I'll ever get over the fact of not having hair. I didn't just lose my hair, I lost a piece of me. There isn't a day that goes by I'm not saddened to not have hair. Please be grateful for your hair, guys. Being bald is awful. What do I do? You wanted to get pregnant, you deal with the consequences. Rant. My sister went through IVF to have her first child, which I have a lot of negative feelings about for many reasons. But obviously my opinion was not consulted. She had a bad pregnancy, she was incredibly nauseous pretty much the whole time. She also has debilitating migraines, and she has to go off all her medication while she's pregnant and cherry feeding because they're dangerous to the baby. So naturally, 1.5 years after having her first child, she's now decided to have IVF again for a second. And of course, she's having all the same issues as the first time around: migraines issues, extreme nausea, fatigue, etc. Except it's all worse this time because she has a toddler to look after as well. My brother-in-law helps where he can, but he is the sole breadwinner, so he works long hours. That means she can't just sleep the days away like she did when she was pregnant the first time. I just don't understand why you'd choose to have another kid, knowing your first pregnancy was a disaster. She now whines constantly about it to anyone who will listen. I, thankfully, blocked them both a long time ago, so I don't have to hear it, but I still hear about it secondhand from various relatives. I don't have an ounce of sympathy for her personally. She knew exactly what she was getting into, and she still chose to do it a second time. Didn't someone once say the definition of insanity was doing the same thing again, but expecting different results?
Would I be the asshole if I told our family what my brother's fiancé really does for a living? My younger brother has been dating his fiancé for around 2.5 years. They got engaged a few months ago. For reference, I'm 34F, he's 30, and his fiancé is 28. Me and my brother used to be besties before he met his fiancée. We were inseparable, but since that we've barely seen each other. I think she is jealous of our relationship. But our family likes his fiancé just fine. As far as I know, nobody has any issues with her or objects to them getting married. I will say that she's a bit closed off. That's really the only negative thing I can say about her. But it's not really a negative. I've just always put it down to being shy and quiet. She doesn't really open up very much, and I wouldn't say anyone in our family feels particularly close to her. I always get the impression that she's putting on an act around us, but not to be malicious. I figured it was just anxiety or something. She's never been anything but nice and respectful. I think she tries, but I just always got the impression it was really hard for her to open up for some reason. She supposedly works from home for a vacation rental company, or so we've been told. I always thought that was odd. My brother's a lawyer. Our dad's a lawyer. Our sister is a statistician and professor. Everyone in our family is well educated and has respectable careers. He's a young, attractive, successful guy, and he's marrying a woman who works in sales for a vacation rental company. Okay, whatever. She's attractive. He sees something in her. She supposedly has a college degree, and although she doesn't talk to us a great deal, she does seem intelligent. Recently, I found out that she's working as a dancer, to put it politely. I'm sure my brother knows. They've been dating for 2 years and live together. He has to know. So they're both lying to all of us? Or maybe she does work at this vacation company and is also a dancer. Anyway, she's on the club's website. My husband found it when helping his friend research clubs to take his younger brother, who was turning 18. She had a whole profile and video on the site, under a fake name, of course. It is 100% her. Like I said, she's attractive, pretty, nice body, but has never given them impression she'd be doing anything like that. Appearance-wise, she doesn't show a ton of skin. I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it does. I want to tell the whole family. I feel like she and my brother have been lying to us this whole time. I don't think my brother should marry a dancer. It's just ridiculous. He obviously knows most of the family would feel the same, otherwise he wouldn't be lying to us. I'm thinking of telling the family what I found out. I don't even know that I can keep it a secret if I try. I feel like it'll be protecting him. But on the other hand, if he knows about it and is okay with it, maybe I would be the asshole. I don't want to hurt him, but I'm just very uncomfortable with this choice he's making.